governments that we have, we will not be able to stop this destruction.
One thing we talk about is the importance of seeing ourselves as part of the natural world, not apart from it.
Do I know you well enough to call you fellow plunderers? There is not an industrial company on earth, not an institution of any kind, not mine, not yours, not anyone's, that is sustainable. I stand convicted by me, myself alone, not by anyone else, as a plunderer of the earth, but not by our civilization's definition. By our civilization's definition, I'm a captain of industry, in the eyes of many a kind of modern-day hero. But really, the first industrial revolution is flawed, it is not working, it is unsustainable, it is the mistake. And we must move on to another and better industrial revolution and get it right this time. When I think of what could be, I visualize an organization of people committed to a purpose. And the purpose is doing no harm. I see a company that has severed the umbilical cord to earth for its raw materials, taking raw materials that have already been extracted and using them over and over again, driving that process with renewable energy. What progress have we made? From 1995 to 1996, our sales increased by $200 million. The amount of material that we extracted from the earth to feed our factories was essentially the same 1.2 billion pounds as in 1995. In other words, the $200 million of incremental sales came with no additional extracted throughput. That is, at practically no additional cost to earth. It is perhaps the first $200 million of truly sustainable business in the history of industry. It is our plan, it remains our plan to climb Mount Sustainability, that mountain that's higher than Everest, infinitely higher than Everest, far more difficult to scale. That point at the top symbolizing zero footprint. But before I die, I want to see the top being the view from there.
3 billion of us still live in poverty. And half of the half who live in poverty are children. So capitalism is doing well, but it's leaving many behind. And I think we should be concerned about whether that gap doesn't increase.
Ultimately, capital puts its foot down somewhere. And anywhere it puts its foot down, it can be held accountable if we're prepared to do that.
I would make sure that the people who work at these corporations have a say in what's going on, that they're more democratically formed, not just the board of directors or a couple of executives are making these decisions.
We were in Honduras, and some workers, they knew the kind of work that we did, and they approached us, these young workers, and they said, conditions in our factory are horrible. Will you please meet with us? And we said we would, but you can't meet in the developing world. You can't walk up to a factory with your notebook and workers come out and you interview them. I mean, there's goons, there's spies, the military, police. So you do everything in a clandestine manner. So we said to the women, go on down the road, about 100 yards. There's a food stand, and the owner is a secret supporter of human rights. We're about to start the meeting, and in walk 3 guys. Very tough-looking guys. The company had found out about a meeting and sent these spies. So the women jump to their feet and they say, these guys are spies, we can't meet, we have to call the meeting off, everything we say is going back to the boss, we'll all lose our jobs, or worse. Obviously, we didn't have the meeting, but these young girls were really bright. I was standing next to an old table, and as they were leaving, away from the eyesight of the spies, they started to put their hands underneath the table. And I put my palm under there, put my hand under there, and they put into my hand their pay stubs. So we'd know who they were, what they were paid, and the labels that they made in the factory, so we'd know who they worked for. And I took my hand out after everyone had left, and in the palm of my hand was the face of Kathy Lee Gifford. But the bottom of it is the interesting part. A portion of the proceeds from the sale of this garment will be donated to various children's charities. It's very touching. Picture right here. Walmart is telling you if you purchase these pants, and Kathy Lee is telling you purchase these pants, you're going to help children. The problem was the people who handed us the label were 13 years of age. By the way, she's forbidden me to speak about her, but I can't help myself. So I have a blow-up and I carry it around. Originally, Walmart and Kathy Lee Gifford had said, why should we believe you that children work in this factory? What we didn't tell them was that Wendy Diaz, in the center of the picture, was on a plane to the United States. This is Wendy Diaz. She comes to the United States. She's unstoppable.
Congress heard testimony today from children who testified they were exploited by sweatshops overseas.
Kathy Lee Gifford apologized to Wendy Diaz. It was the most amazing thing I'd seen. This powerful celebrity leans over and says, Wendy, please believe me, I didn't know these conditions existed. And now that I do, I'm going to work with you, I'm going to work with these other people, and it'll never happen again. And that night, we signed an agreement with Kathy Lee Gifford.
I thought it would be a relatively easy process, and it isn't. For every question I have, there seem to be 5 questions that come back at me. We have been...
As far as Walmart goes and Kathy Lee, pretty much everything returned to sweatshop conditions. But because this was fought out on television for weeks, this incident with Kathy Lee Gifford actually took the sweatshop issue to every single part of the country. And so, frankly, after that, there's hardly a single person in this country who doesn't know about child labor or sweatshops or starvation wages. And we're preparing a campaign. If the label's protected, so should the 60-year-old who made that label. So if the label's protected under international copyrights and intellectual property rights, if it's protected under WTO, that's fine. But the 60-year-old's going to have every bit as much protection as that label.
We need to determine that certain things shouldn't be bought and sold. You can have a price on anything. You can have a price on humans. We've done it. It was called slavery. We didn't experience market failure one day, sell slaves, let's get out of the business. It took an immense social worldwide movement to try to abolish the slave trade and eventually slavery. And what did we do? We took a commodity, human beings, out of the marketplace because we said there is a moral order and it takes precedence over markets.
I started this phase of my life, literally 87, both under the awareness made directly by the big corporations that told us that by the turn of the century, 5 companies would be controlling our food and health through patents and genetic engineering and corporate mergers, as well as the Uruguay round of GATT, which was drawing in intellectual property rights and patents into a world trading system. And that's when I decided this is what I must work on, because it was really about the most fundamental fabric of our moral existence. Over the past decade, we have been gaining ground. And when I say we, I mean ordinary people committed to the welfare of all of humanity, all people irrespective of gender and class and race and religion, all species on the planet. We managed to take the biggest government and one of the largest chemical companies to court on the case of Neem and win a case against them. W.R. Grace and the U.S. government's patent on Neem was revoked by a case we brought along with the Greens of European Parliament and the International Organic Agriculture Movement. We won because we worked together. We have overturned nearly 99% of the basmati patent of rice tech. Again, because we worked as a worldwide coalition. Old women in Texas, scientists in India, activists sitting in Vancouver, a little basmati action group. When countries are challenging TRIPS and asking for review and change in the agreement, they use the language of biopiracy. We stopped the third world being viewed as the pirate, and we showed the corporations were the pirate.